You're watching TVC Breakfast. Let's get into our next discussion of the day. As Nigeria joins the rest of the world to commemorate the International Day of Education, stakeholders believe it is an opportunity for the government to take a critical look at the myriad of challenges that have bedeviled the sector and confront them frontally. The education sector still struggles with not only infrastructural decay, high rate of out-of-school children pegged at over 10 million outdated curriculum, but also kidnapping of children, amongst others. This year's theme, Changing Course, Transforming Education, focuses on the social and emotional components of learning to revive education. That's the crux of our discussion next. And joining me to make sense of all of this is Director La Posh School, Ronke Posh Adeni. Ronke, good morning.
Good morning.
And good to see you. The lady in red.
Thank you.
All right, now let me start it this way. Everyone has said, or everyone has agreed, that education is the bedrock of any kind of development at all. However, we have still seen, if we want to analyze deeply and pick some of these things, that it is still those who are educated one way or the other, who become leaders, that are the ones who have also deprived the system at one point or the other, too, of what is needed. And we sitting down here complaining of some of the things that should be in place that are not in place, you know. So if we want to view it from that perspective, how much have we benefited from education, really? Let me put it bigly on the table first before we begin to dissect it, you know, specifically.
Okay, you had many questions and comments in there, quite convoluted. But one thing that we must understand is that what is education, really? What is education?
Good question.
Are we really educated in Nigeria? Schooling is not education. Because when we go through an education, it's not about learning how to read and write alone. There's more to it. There are life skills, there are social skills that we need to develop. You know, even simple things like empathy, kindness, and love that we don't see generally in our nation. These are all part of education. You know, being kind, leading people aright, you know, leadership skills, all these are education. So it's not enough to know how to read and write. So if you really go through things in Nigeria, are we really educated? I beg to differ. I don't think we're educated, enlightened. Yes, we can read and write, but that is not education.
Education, read and write, enlightenment, civilization, you know, all of those, the list goes on and on.
It goes on.
All right, now the point there is, on a day like this that we commemorate International Day of Education, it draws close at home the importance of what education is. And education, in fact, for the purpose of this discussion now, when we say education, we'll put all of those elements you're talking about, enlightenment, civilization, everything inside, so that we don't, it's not about sitting in class in the four walls and all of that only. But however, the point there is, education, they say, some people say it starts from the home, from parenting and all of that. And if you watch and analyze the last few decades, you see that every single decade seems to be deterioration of quality of everything, even from parenting to leadership to everything and all of that. Now, what are the consequences or implications of this deterioration that we are seeing?
The consequences is what we are seeing, really. So when we have, you rightly said that education starts from the home. Now, if education starts from the home and the parents are saying they're busy and they're at work, how does that education happen?
Hustling to make money.
Yes, they're hustling to make money. So they will outsource their parenting to domestic workers that don't share the same values with them. And even these days, what values do parents really have? Because we see so much going on these days. So we are really in a mess in society. And we need to return to old-fashioned values, old-fashioned morals. That's where we need to return to, because what we have now, we do not have people that are educated enough to be able to take out enough, not many anyway, compared to the population of the nation, because like you rightly said, we have, in fact, when I checked last night, it was over 13 million children that are out of school. And that's even the data that we have. You know, that Nigeria is not a country that we can bank on our data. We have many people that have, even around where I live, you know, when you go around, you see people that have given birth to children, they haven't taken them to hospital. You know, we haven't counted those sort of people. So are we talking 20 million? You know, so it's like the poverty capital of the world and illiterate capital of the world, where we don't have a lot of people that are educated. So how do you move a nation forward when they are not really educated? And then when the education has not been imbibed into the people, when people have only been schooled, how do they also move our nation forward? I mean, you must have read recently about the school owner who abducted a 5-year-old. And also, and then eventually killed the little girl. Now, the school is supposed to be a second home to the children. Now, if I cannot confidently and safely take my child to school, where else can I take my child to? Now, what is the vision of the person who set up the school? How can you find it in your heart to do something like that to a child that is yours? So that is the condition that we are living in the country now. Really
heartbreaking when we read that report, and we just hope that the security agents or the law will take its course the way it's supposed to be. Now, you mentioned the issue of going back to the old-fashioned education. I'd like us to go back to that old-fashioned. Let's talk about it. Some people will say, well, old-fashioned is old school, like this, like some people would say. But if you want to measure the value and the quality of and the substance of that old school that some people would say, of course it will be more valuable than what we have now. But how do we go back there when the world is moving this way?
You see, people are saying old-fashioned, but the thing is, there's hype and there's substance. There's the meat of the crux, the core of it. What you want to make fashionable is how you do it. At the end of the day, the values will still remain the values. Integrity is still integrity. How you choose to deliver the message, whether you want to use social media, whether you want to digitalize it, whether you want to do whatever, that old-fashioned value is still integrity. It's still leadership. It's still empathy. All those values still remain the same.
What made that old-fashioned education that's valuable at that time?
I think parents were present. People were more conscious of what they were doing, and the love of money, the love of this accelerated living, where people just want to fast track this microwave living. We want to have everything. We want to have everything right now. You want to have it. In fact, you want to have it yesterday. You don't even want to have it right now. We have a lot of that now. So all those.
So people are there's a lot of desperation in the.
People don't want to go through the process. They just want to get the results. So we're struggling. If people don't focus on that process and they're struggling, they will jump hoops and they will compromise.
As it is now, well, let's talk about the issue of curriculum. We have had curriculum changes in this country, or even generally, but we're narrowing it down to this country so many times. It goes back, it goes forth, it goes back, the infusion of new things, removal of old things, you know, whatever the thing is. But others will say that the curriculum, the kind of curriculum we run, doesn't make the product, that's the person, when you finish from school, being perfectly relevant to what he comes or what she comes out to do.
I mean, the curriculum, I will not condemn it totally. I mean, there's some good in it. It can't just be completely bad. I mean, we came out of that curriculum.
No, of course.
And one way or the other.
And so here we are.
Yeah, here we are. So that curriculum can be improved, yes, but I will not totally condemn it. What I will condemn is how it is delivered, how it is managed, the people who are in charge of this curriculum. Those are the people that I'm going to hold accountable if I have to do something like that concerning the curriculum. It is all right, but when we have examination malpractices, when our teachers are cheating, when they allow parents to bribe their ways and children are given grades and their special centers, all those values and lack of those values, they are the problem. It's not actually the content of the curriculum. Because if somebody is telling you in class that, oh, don't cheat, don't steal, don't do this, but then does exactly the same thing for you, then you've defeated the purpose of what you have just taught the child. And that is what we find in the classroom. We find a lot of proprietors cheating. We find a lot of parents also cheating, bribing their way, buying results and doing all sorts of things. So it's not the fault of the curriculum, is it? It's the fault of the people. So we need to work on the people.
All right, let's talk about infrastructure. The point there is you go to especially, I'm underlining the word especially, public schools, where you go to some public schools and then right from the primary to some secondary school. But it's a good thing that if you come to Lagos, comparatively, you know, you will see some level of upgraded standards, you know, but we're putting Nigeria on the platter now. You go to so many public schools and a lot of things are dilapidated. We've seen even in higher institutions where students sit on blocks sometimes, sit on the windows. You know, we've had in some parts of the country where people, you're going to school, you have to go with your own chair, otherwise you can't sit down, you know, and things like that. What is the impact of things like this on the learning process that we are talking, the substance of the learning process? So
learning is said to be state dependent. For a child to thrive, they need a conducive environment. For a child to thrive, they need freedom. For a child to thrive, they have to have the right support systems and they have to have choices. But we find that a lot of these are lacking. And it's not just in the public schools. Yes, the public schools, the private schools have come and they've actually saved the day in many ways. However, these challenges still remain in both sectors. Because, I mean, I've seen all sorts of schools cutting to separate the classroom and all sorts of things, but they are supposed to be. Some of those ones I would still even rather take my child to a public school than some of the so-called private schools. I think some people call them mushroom. I'm not into the labeling, but I encourage us to all improve standards. So a child that doesn't have a conducive environment to learn is going to struggle. They would actually struggle to learn. So you can't eat, you're hungry, you don't have a chair to sit, you're on the floor, it's raining or the sun is so hot. How do you actually really enjoy learning? Because learning is to be enjoyed. It's not supposed to be endured. So that's why I said the delivery of the education, we must do it right in such a way that the children enjoy learning and they become lifelong learners, because that's what they need for the sustainable development goals. They need to enjoy learning and be curious and question and continue to explore. This is how we're going to drive the change that we need in Nigeria.
If we have to, I wonder where we have to start from, whether it is the government that has to start it, or the parents have to start it, or proprietors like you have to start it. I don't know. Where should we start from when we're talking about getting it right, you know, in a way that it is general enough to impact everybody? So we start with you, start with me, start in your circle of influence. We can't keep saying government. If we say those government officials are from the people, they pick them from around us, and many people are aspiring to get into the government because they want to do one thing or the other. We have to start in our own circles of influence. We don't have to say, oh, when I become this or when I become that. Start in your community, start on your road, start in, you know, start in your church, your mosque, your temple, whatever you are. Start with yourself. How can I drive change where I am? How am I even changing? How am I a light in my community? So we can't wait for the next person. It has to be us. And the more that we keep saying it has to be somebody else, we're not going to go anywhere. We're looking for somebody to lead us. We should self-lead. We are all leaders. We're all capable of driving change, no matter how little. And then when this thing all infuses, then we begin to see substantial change in our nation. All right. On a day like this, how best can a day like this be commemorated? International Day of Education. Unfortunately, I'm not even conscious of the fact that I don't think a lot of educators even know that the day exists. I don't want to say that. Is it that bad? Yeah. I mean, they don't know they don't know that this day exists. People don't know that which one is education day again. So a lot of people don't even know that it exists. So what are they commemorating? What are the educators doing? What are the school owners doing? Ideally at this time, there should be a hashtag. They should be talking about it. It's talking about the girl child in everybody, like I said, in circles of influence. And then you will see the traction.
You know, when something happens on social media and different people are talking about it in different bubbles before you know what's happening.
And then it draws attention to the issue.
But you find that educators are already thinking. I mean, yesterday I was scrolling through Facebook, as I was saying today online. I was scrolling through Facebook and somebody was saying, are teachers allowed to wear eyelashes to school? And I thought to myself, we are still talking about eyelashes in 2022. We're talking about color of teachers' hair in 2022. We're talking about teachers wearing trousers in 2022. And countries are talking about sustainable development goals, clearing out poverty, energy, you know, making sure that there's equality. And we were here talking about eyelashes and trousers. So, I mean, this is a mighty mountain to climb in Nigeria. But let's start. Those of us that are doing it, let's just keep lighting the fire. You know, keep lighting, keep touching one person.
I like the way you talk about the issue of your area of influence, you know, your circle of influence, where you have some level of influence, make the change there, and you do yours, she does her own, and then at the end of the day, it catches fire and everywhere is on fire positively. If we all can do that, I guess it will go a long way. Now, let's talk about the issue of emotions, where the way people engage each other, you know, is becoming a little more phenomenal than it used to be. And people have a lot of burden of different things right now, where it's drawing attention to the issue of emotional intelligence, you know, how you should speak to people, how you should engage with other people, you know, and so on. Talk to us from that window regarding how educated we should all be from that window.
I mean, you're too right when you talk about emotional intelligence. Everybody needs emotional intelligence, even children. I mean, I've written a book for children, and emotional intelligence is part of the content because it's important that we respect one another as individuals. But we don't find it at all. I was at a wedding on this weekend, and I had a young girl step in front of me, and I said, I'm recording, I'm also recording. She wanted to record. And I'm like, you know, and she just looked at me like, what's this on? Just stayed more in front of, you know.
Instead of saying, oh, sorry.
You know, all those, you know, please, thank you, sorry, pardon me, excuse me, those magic words, they are non-existent because it's not happening in the homes. You know, people are angry because we are hustling. We want to get this, we want to get that. That's why I said we have to go back to this. What we need are simple things. We don't need all the technology in the world. Yes, they will help, but technology is going to teach you, it's not going to teach you magic words. You have to learn it. Parents have to teach their children to greet. You know, how do you treat your domestic workers in the house? Your children don't greet the security guard. Your children don't greet the driver. Your children don't greet the... nothing. They just do anything they want. And you let them get away with it. They send them on errands anyhow, do anything. It's from the home. So our challenges are very many, but they are simple to solve if we start with ourselves.
Wow. It's okay. In Rwanda, we've read this story about Rwanda so many times where private schools are closing down because government is investing so much, and then when it comes to not just the being affordable, but the quality of education in public schools are becoming better than even private schools, where private schools can't meet up, and so they are closing down and all of that. Now, the private public school, certainly, it may not necessarily be the issue. Education is education, like some people would say. But however, there's usually this very, you know, wide margin between what private schools are doing, how they're doing it, from what the public schools are doing and how they're doing it. At the end of the day, all of the children or the product of all of these schools find themselves out in the same society. Like, we all go to the same market to buy the same kind of things and all of that. Now, how do we bridge this gap and learn from each other, the public-private sector, where there is no wide dichotomy between one and the other?
I think the government will help, our leadership will help, and when we begin to see that, especially private sector, which I belong, when we begin to, and the government begin to see that we are not at war, because there's this vibe that we are at war, you know, the government are coming for the private schools. It's like they're on the side of the public school. When private school owners do something, they're coming with a big stick to flog them, to seal their schools or one thing or the other. Just like we had on the 4th of January resumption, where people couldn't keep up, and they're forcing them to, and they're saying, my school is dirty, my school is not ready, but you're saying, oh, you're going to be sealed and things like that. When we begin to collaborate, when we begin to communicate better, because a lot of people didn't even get the information, when we begin to think critically, and you know, just using these 4 C's, being creative, working together, You know, you can use a teacher in a public school and a private school. We have online learning these days. There's so many ways that you can make education even more seamless. There's so many ways that public school teachers can educate and teach private schools and vice versa. It shouldn't be a case of war, as in private school versus public school. No, it is in the best interest of the child. And if it is genuinely in the best interest of the child, there should be no contention. There should be seamless. It's just going to be a matter of choice. Because no matter how great the public schools become, there will still be people that will choose private school. It is a choice that people want to make. So you should understand that there must be synergy. There must be love. Basic. No, I keep saying these basic things. It's not a fight. Everything is like they're trying to scare us, this fine, this, that. Why must you, you know, you're running a school and you're trying, they think that people want to profit here. I left a banking job in the UK to come and set up a school in Nigeria. So I came here to add value because I was tired of talking about, I went back to retrain. I had done an MBA, I had gone to medical school. I went back to do education for the Nigerian child. And then you're attacking me. Just, we have to think and know that it's not everybody that is in it for the money. What I'm making today, I'm not even making half of what I was making when I was contracting in the banks. So we must know that some of us have a vested interest in the Nigerian child, and it's not a war. Let us be able to do this thing and do it comfortably, and let us have the support of the government. Let us not always feel as if, oh, once they come around like this, we are shaking in our boots. Hey, they are coming, you know, it shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be like that. It has to be taken away. And it's not, that's not the way it is at the moment.
All right. We have to leave you here now. Thank you very much, Ronke Posh Adeni, for coming on the program. And on a day like this, really important. Like you said, how many educationists know that today is International Day of Education? But we have to drum this awareness so people can really get to talk about it, and then it draws attention to some of the issues that we're talking about. Thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Right.